Oh, howdy. So, since I have Fridays off, I decided to go shopping before dancing. And then I got home and it's kind of later than, too late to take a nap, and I don't really need one because I slept late. And, I don't know, I started playing around with what I'm going to wear dancing tonight, but, which is why I'm dressed already, but I'll probably change things up. I forgot about pandemic thing, and I probably have to get rid of the tie, replace it with my ascot mask combination. But I had been playing around on the walk with the idea of Halloween. And, in part because Halloween was my recently passed wife's favorite holiday. Kind of the only one that really mattered to her a lot. She loved autumn. She would jump on the leaves, singing, "It's fall." Sometimes, and one of the few things that she would do that would kind of occasionally, although usually if she noticed someone, she would kind of whisper it, attract attention, which she wouldn't do very much with almost anything. One of her primary goals in life was to avoid obtaining any attention, sort of the opposite of what I am, right? But then I started reflecting more generally on Halloween. So I wanted to, go through, I guess, I don't know, my story of Halloween is likely to get, kind of schmoozy or whatever. I can't guarantee I'm not going to get emotional about anything anywhere anymore. But when I was young, very young, my mother was very much into a lot of holidays. I mean, all of them kind of she went into. But she went very heavily into Halloween and Christmas. Although honestly, again, all of them were kind of these traditions that she wanted to establish or something, a real flavor to, that was her own. I mean, it wasn't just on like her childhood or anything like that. But she made a bigger deal about most of them than anyone else that I kind of knew. I mean, I don't know. We would have when we could, we would have a huge fucking Christmas tree. We would have far too many presents. My Easter basket was overflowing, and we would do an Easter egg hunt and all of that. Thanksgiving dinner, what little family, which was basically my cousin and whoever her boyfriend was at the time, would come over for all of the holidays, really. She would come sometimes with, sometimes without. And Thanksgiving, for example, there'd be a big, turkey or whatever. Christmas, there would be sauerbraten for Christmas Day. Christmas Eve was always sort of the more special night for her, and I think for me as well. The one that I replicate more, which is, we're talking about a lot of, I mean, my mom passed this year as well. Passed. She died. I never liked that euphemism, and it feels so funny to have it just roll off my tongue that way, but, I guess I kind of understand it now, it's easier than facing that simpler word. But yeah, the Christmas Eve was always sort of a help yourself buffet type thing, just a bunch of lunch meats. My dad used to work at a deli, and we got like a care package every year from there, where we had the salami that was made there, the prosciutto that was made there, and there would be nuts, a lot, and pies, and just cookies and all kind of stuff. And it was just sort of, and lots of champagne for Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Day was weird because, like Thanksgiving, it was one of these sit-down dinners. And as a family, we didn't really do sit-down dinners. We did them less than anyone else, I think, for the most part. Like, when we did do them kind of regularly, we were playing cards during them, but we didn't do that on the high holiday days, right? Halloween, though, was she would sew me costumes. She would make homemade costumes for a while, and then I would put things together as I got older for myself. Again, normally using real stuff rather than going out and buying costume parts or things. Well, I might get my vampire teeth or something like that. I don't know. I think I got those for Easter. We had some strange things. Easter's all about blood, right? It's a blood right religion. But yeah, and she would also, decorate and go kind of all out on the decorations and spooky music and stuff like that, haunted sounds. And when we lived in Goshen, we lived in a very, very spooky looking house that, the kids were afraid to come to already. She wouldn't go all out the way that, like, I later, when we had a TV finally, started, we would see people would get on the local news for their spreads and like little haunted houses going up to their place or stuff. And I saw places like that once I moved into Phoenix more than anywhere else. But she went more all out than anyone I knew, in any of the neighborhoods that I saw. And nowadays, I think more people do. And she was not on the silly side of Halloween and the cutesy side. She was on the spooky side of it. And I kept my enjoyment of Halloween throughout, like college. I can remember freshman year going out trick-or-treating and, having costume stuff sent to me specifically because, when I went up to school, I didn't think about it. And an interesting story there, I was going kind of as a Balrog, but it was a half-assed sort of thing. I was wearing my bathrobe, which was an impressive bathrobe, this huge gray caped thick thing, not caped, hooded, yeah. And I had my cat of five tails and a sword with me, and one of the janitors ran into us as we were crossing campus, and he gave me his fingerless gloves because he was like, "Those go with this." It was so right. And we went to a couple of places, but it's mainly the campus area. Ended up getting beers, underage, but whatever. And getting invited into a couple of parties and stuff more than anything else. And it was a pretty cool time. Not really what I expected. And I never really got into the sort of bar scene Halloween party type thing where there's cash prizes and all this. And I really didn't want to. That was never my scene, and it still isn't. it never will be. I can remember though, walking by the fancy downtown New Year's Eve celebrations while I'm, dressed like a homeless person, of course, with my fucking bugle, which I would ring out on New Year's Eve. And I would wait around for hours because my first wife was always working in the garage on the holidays. Had trouble getting people for the holidays. That she didn't care about that one or any of them much, I think. But I mean, she liked spring a lot, so Easter was kind of her best holiday. And the food for Easter, we kind of did that. We did her Palestinian side food, where we had like things like gibby and stuff. But yeah, I would be. I wasn't supposed to stick around near her for it, but I would stop in regularly. But I would wander around on the streets, and there was a big celebration in I don't know, kind of like a square type thing, fountain and big buildings and whatnot, and they blew off a lot of fireworks. And I would stick around for that, as well as being able to stop in and chat with her. And some other street people that I knew from downtown vaguely, because I was working in the same place, and so a lot of them knew me, from the daytime when I'd be doing maintenance work there. But back to the Halloween story. Anyway, my first girlfriend, and really, I would say my psycho ex as well, which were really the two kind of long-term relationships I had outside my marriage before marriages, were very, I don't know, they seemed kind of normal in terms of like their reactions to this kind of stuff. And so I kind of mellowed out on all of this stuff. Holidays were there, but they weren't a big deal at all. I don't really, my psycho ex invited me to her parents' house a couple of times, and that was kind of weird because it's like, okay, so, they're being nice and giving gifts, but like, and trying to make me feel kind of at home, but I don't know, it just, I guess most people kind of stay in the relationship with their family where they're going back. It was too much of a pain in the ass for me. And too contentious, I mean, it wasn't, it just didn't ever seem worth the effort. Early on it did, and then later it didn't. But obviously for Halloween, nobody goes home for Halloween, right? But I can't remember doing anything with either of them for Halloween particularly. Maybe I'm just missing something. Maybe my memories have been blotted out. But then I remember, but these are relationships that were only a couple of years long in each case. With my first wife, Halloween was her least favorite holiday. I'm not quite sure why, I think the main thing was the annoyance of the children and the trick-or-treating and all that. And so, we just basically didn't do anything for Halloween, ever. And by that point in my life, I had gotten used to dressing up enough for other events or other whatever, in the way that I like to dress up, which isn't too different from this, right? And then I would usually take kind of a period dress for any particular time or whatever. And then I would just sort of, it became less of an important thing because I always kind of disliked well, who are you? Like I'm some specific person. You know, if I had gone as a ghost or a pirate or, you know, a hobo or something, nobody would ask, "Who are you?" Right? But if I dressed as, like, you know, a 17th or 18th century fop, there was this expectation that I'm, like, you know, someone either from history or fiction or something. And no, I'm just dressing as I would, you know. So I actually kind of found it easier to take on that kind of costuming on normal days. And I can remember we went to a Halloween party, my first wife and I, at the coffee shop that I used to like. Or maybe it was just me. She may have been working or something. Um, But I went just, you know, dressed as a businessman, basically. Which, you know, most people think I'm not in costume at all because I do that every now and then. But I was like, yeah, I'm taking on a completely different persona here. And a couple of people got kind of the joke of that because, you know, I tried to look more presentable. Like normally, whatever I do when I wear a suit or whatever, I don't try to look terribly presentable. I don't try to look like I'm working, you know, on Wall Street or something. And here I kind of did slick back hair and all that kind of shit, and clean shaven and everything. Um, but then, so anyway, we didn't do a whole hell of a lot for Halloween or for much of anything. And we had our, you know, it's kind of weird. Her best friend, when we met, for a couple of years, we went to their family house, both for Halloween and for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And she really hated the Halloween one. She would go hide up in her friend's room during that whole thing. Her friend loved it, and Halloween was her favorite holiday, which is why she wanted her friend there, you know, and me too. She grew kind of accepting of my existence. But with my past wife, she loved Halloween, but not in this sort of, yeah. So it's kind of weird because she had a lot of interest in occult and certain mystical type things, mostly focused on tarot. And you know, she has had a couple of websites. Maybe you've been able to find them from my links or whatever, where it shows, you know, the tarot deck she was building or creating, and some thoughts on it and whatnot. It never got very far. And she was always looking to create something on the web, you know, something she could do that was artistic because she had, you know, seems like everybody I am with has an artistic background. I'm so untalented that whatever artistic minds, and I don't have the stamina, willpower, whatever, to work towards that. You know, it's like there's certain burning images that I would like to present, but they're really one shots. It's not like, and then also with the, hey, I have this. I'm not sure I need to share it. That's a big part, you know. So I have my drumming gives me the ability to, like, watch movies. You know, granted, I've given a lot of that up as I get older, but it's always there. I always have the capability to imagine things, and don't really feel any great compulsion to share that imagination. In fact, doing it in person, like making up a story for someone or something, is almost impossible for me. Doing the idea of writing, yes, I've done some attempts at it. Uh, I also have imagery that I would love to be able to present, but don't have anywhere near. I mean, at least with writing, I like to think that I can. know. I'm not necessarily, I'm not like a master of the craft, but I'm capable of writing things that people can enjoy. But I don't really have where I do, where I have done it. It's been sort of this. Maybe I can make a living that way. You know, which is I think that's the wrong way to approach something. Um, I don't at all disagree that, like, I think it's perfectly reasonable for a person to try to make their living with something they really enjoy doing. But I don't particularly enjoy writing. I enjoy shoveling dirt more, if it comes down to it. And I certainly enjoy the work that I do more. And it's, unless, there's some tremendous hidden talent here, it's significant that, wouldn't require many years of practice to unveil and refine. It's relatively acceptable in terms of income. I mean, I'm not making money like Stephen King is, but I got as much as I need, and if I had, I don't know, any reasonable amount of money, uh, I really don't think that it would make a significant difference in how I approach much. Um, I mean, the one thing is, it would be easier to concede to the, hey, I've got to hire someone to just run my life for me. I can afford to do that. And that doesn't feel like it's the case. I don't feel like I could hire someone full time to run my life the way that, I don't know, that most very wealthy people can afford to do. That would be the one thing that I would look towards for that. Where am I getting with all of this? Yeah. So let's go back to what I intended to talk about, which, with my recently passed wife, she was not into sort of the spooky side of Halloween, which my mom was into, and she was occult curious, I would say. We did seances and we did stuff like that and brought people in to look for ghosts and stuff, but none of it was really, it didn't sort of take over a significant portion of her life. I've known people who are much, much further on that route, and I would say I'm further on that route as well, in my own way, but I seek my own path. But yeah, I think I think my past wife was gets tired of saying that. I don't know how to put it though. I don't know another term for it, but it feels like two words is wrong. My recent corpse was more um, more a follower of paths that had communities around them. So she was kind of into I am told, what should be considered European mysticism and stuff like that. I can kind of see, and I can kind of see the darker side of that, which is like this kind of looking down on other ways, you know. But it did seem pretty directed towards the tarot. There wasn't like, I mean, I didn't see her doing alchemy. She was curious about the idea of, not the only one either, my first wife was as well, about the idea of skeletons, animal skeletons and stuff like that, and trying to, you know, cleanse them and make them presentable. And I'm always disgusted by that because the dead bother me somehow. But yeah, I found it kind of, you know, an interesting dichotomy that she had these sort of dark longings throughout her normal life, but Halloween was almost entirely a cutesy, silly, amusing sort of holiday for her. And it was, I mean, she liked the spookier things too, but it was almost that playful sort of, you know, we would see like a sheet hanging somewhere as a ghost, some cobwebs up, whatever, and she'd be like, "Oh, I think we ought to cross the street. I'm too scared," you know, that kind of stuff, and you know, would show me little fuzzy spiders and things like that when they show up in the store, and would be all excited about it. And we went to visit a Halloween shop a couple of times, more my driving than hers, just because I knew she would enjoy, but she had a hard time with the let's do X, you know. So we'd be out walking and see one, and I'd be like, "Why don't we go in there?" And she'd kind of grumble and mumble about it, but in the end, I think she had enjoyed herself in them. Although, anyway. One thing she would do is every year she would try to remember a Halloween joke for me. And usually she would get this like sometime in January or something. And try to remember it all year. And it would just be one silly little Halloween joke. And, oh geez, we watched some Halloween themed cartoon series too. Something behind the wall or in the forest or something, I don't know. With the potatoes and molasses, which of course became something, anytime I would mention like molasses, definitely. But even if we were talking about potatoes, it would often come, which is more common in my life. I don't ever have molasses. I don't make anything that needs it particularly. I'll buy my damn ginger snaps. But quite often she would just start singing that song for it. The funny thing there is we never did anything for Halloween. And in fact, much of anything. When we go shopping or whatever, we would point out if we saw something that was spooky. But the street below me and the neighborhood near me actually had a fair amount of Halloween decorations, etc. And I think the first couple of years I would take her out to see them, but I don't know, she became too unmotivated to even want to do that at night. I think we went out during the day last year even. Well, last year? Yeah, last year. During the pandemic thing, because it was kind of interesting, and we walked around the whole area, but it was during the daylight. It wasn't at night when things are actually kind of cool. And I think we were actually there like Halloween night, or, well, Halloween evening. But yeah, I found that kind of an interesting dichotomy. Now for me, On my own, it means nothing. And here's the other thing. So with my past wife, she also was terrified at the idea of little kids coming and wanting to trick or treat or everything. And I'm as annoyed by that concept as my first wife is, or was. Where I want nothing to do with that invasion, that is not Halloween to me. It's just, I mean, the reason for Halloween was to be able to, I don't know. I don't know what it was. I enjoyed the dressing up and I enjoyed being around people, but and doing some task like trick or treating. But I didn't particularly. It wasn't like that exciting a thing, and certainly the big haul of candy was not a big deal either. But the idea of like random people coming up and trying to extort you for candy just did not appeal at all. And so, it's kind of neat because everywhere where I've lived, there aren't a lot of kids out trick or treating. I lived in a complex that didn't have a lot of kids in Phoenix. Well, a couple of complexes that didn't have a lot of kids. And here, this is a street that's not terribly, it's not like some subdivision or something. There's not a lot of houses. There's a fair number of houses, but it's a lot of walking and work to get around on them. The only thing that draws people here is the park, which is beautiful, and the cliff that's not far away that is great for 4th of July, but the density of houses, there are almost no kids up here. It's not that kind of neighborhood. It's either old folk. There are a few kids down that way, but it's a lot of older folk, and then a lot of much younger, and a few college age rentals. This house used to be a college rental house, but it's a little out. It's hard to get in on and off the hill to the college. So like, you kind of have to have a car to be up here for anything, which makes it a little weird for me, but I'm okay with it. I get my exercise. I had somebody when they visited. First time somebody walked to my house, they were fucking out of breath from just climbing the hill. And my wife used to be out of breath from it too. And I was, once I started getting the COVID after effects or extra weight. I think it's COVID after effects. I think the weight came on slowly enough that it didn't really impact things, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. Like, it might not just be the weight. It might be not moving as much. But the weird thing about that is it's really off and on. I mean, it's like there are some days or periods of like 3 or 4 days where I have real problems, where I feel like, my chest isn't, it's just gonna, I'm having, chest pains, and I get severe headaches that feel like a stroke is coming on and whatnot. And then most of the time I feel more or less how I usually do. Sometimes a little more winded. Sometimes a little more winded I'm willing to write off as either. But when I'm starting to get the chest pains and the head pains that are weird, really weird, like, just like a sharp ice pick behind my ear for like, 30 seconds or so, and then it's gone. When I get those, I'm like much more thinking, well, that aligns better with the COVID after effects, even though the out of breath and stuff does align with it. I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm out of shape too, so it could be either, right? You know, and I don't know where to write off the, yeah, I had to take a seat on the way up the hill. Anyway, um, I don't know what else to put with this. It's just I felt like Halloween should be a theme for one of these, and I probably need to finish getting ready and whatnot. So cheers.